trying to coddle him for? Let the man walk off, have some time to himself, sit down, soak it up, and come up with what he need to do.
What you want to do? What you want to do? You from here?
Yeah, I'm from here. Yeah, I'm from here.
All right, so... Oh, hell, y'all, let's go. What's up with you?
I've already made my peace with it, because I know that energy. I was that energy.
Imagine the world stopping for a moment, like the air itself has been ripped out of the room. Whispers turn to gasps, gasps to shouts. And suddenly, everyone is talking about the same thing. Ty's son, King Harris, lying in an ICU bed after what the internet is calling one of the most shocking jail incidents in recent memory. It's not just another rumor flying through your timeline. This feels heavier, darker, like the kind of story that makes your chest tighten as you scroll. Fans are shaken. Emotions ran high, and the family was left divided in the glare of cameras and questions no one wanted to answer. What really happened behind those cold steel bars? Why did the prison cameras mysteriously cut out right before the attack? And why does every leaked clip feel more like a scene from a tragic movie than real life? Outside the hospital, crowds swelled with candles and prayers, while inside, Ty and Tiny clung to hope that their boy would pull through. The internet has turned this into a storm. Hashtags climbing worldwide, theories piling up by the minute, and yet the truth sits like a shadow. Nobody can fully touch. This is heartbreak. This is chaos. And it's only the beginning. The hospital lights cast a cold glow over the waiting room as whispers turned into silence, and silence turned into tears. Outside,
Son, think I ain't spoke to my son. Think I ain't told my son, his mama, and his grandmamas. His ass going to prison. If you goddamn keep that shit up.
Atlanta's night sky was lit with candles and the sound of voices chanting King Harris's name. It felt like the whole city had been pulled into the same nightmare. News outlets were scrambling, but the streets had already chosen their truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some random prison scuffle. It was something darker, and everyone wanted answers. Inside the hospital, Ty sat hunched over, his usually steady presence shattered. His hands trembled as he pressed them together, staring at the floor as if trying to hold his entire world from collapsing. Tiny was inconsolable, pacing the hallways, breaking down every few minutes, crying out, asking why her son was lying on a bed hooked up to machines instead of standing beside her. Their family, known to millions for music, fame, and reality shows, suddenly seemed like any other family gripped by fear. Friends and relatives flooded the corridors. Some tried to comfort. Others whispered theories that only added to the chaos. "This was a setup," one cousin muttered, his voice heavy with anger. You don't just have cameras shut down at the exact moment something like this goes down. That's no coincidence. The words spread quickly, each repetition adding fuel to a fire no one could contain. Fans outside picked it up, repeating it in live streams, turning speculation into trending hashtags. Interview 143-156 social media amplified every whisper. One moment, a fan shared a tearful prayer video. The next, another account posted a clip claiming to show an anonymous nurse saying it wasn't random at all. The line, "This was planned. Someone wanted him gone," echoed across every platform like a chilling chorus. People shared it without caring about proof. Emotions ran too high, and the hunger for answers was stronger than caution. Meanwhile, inside the IQ, doctors worked tirelessly, moving like shadows around King's fragile body. The rhythmic beeping of machines felt like the only sound in the world. Tiny tried to push through the doors more than once, screaming that she needed to see her boy, only to be held back gently by nurses who assured her they were doing everything they could. Every second felt like an eternity, and every whispered update carried the weight of life or death. Back at the prison, reports began leaking about what might have happened. Some said it was a gang issue. Others swore it was tied to Ty's past beefs. One story claimed that King had uncovered contraband moving under the noses of guards, and that he had spoken too loudly to the wrong people. Whether true or not, it fed the frenzy. The idea that this was a hit, carefully orchestrated to send a message, was too dramatic for people to ignore. Fans outside the hospital grew in number. They weren't just holding candles anymore. They were chanting for justice, holding up signs, demanding answers from officials who stayed silent. A viral video showed a group shouting at prison staff as they walked past, their anger boiling over. "You failed him!" one fan screamed. "You protect criminals better than you protect kids." It was raw, painful, and impossible to ignore. Inside the waiting room, tensions rose within the family too. Relatives argued over what to do next, some calling for calm while others demanded action. Ty's voice finally broke through the noise, cracking as he said, "I don't care about justice right now. I just want my boy to live." His words, caught on camera, spread instantly online, painting him not as a superstar but as a father begging for mercy from a system he no longer trusted. Rumors of cover-ups grew thicker when whistleblowers claimed the cameras hadn't malfunctioned at all. They had been turned off. If true, it meant the people sworn to uphold order were complicit in creating chaos. Fans latched onto that detail, calling it proof that King's attack wasn't random, that it was part of something much bigger. The more unanswered questions piled up, the louder the voices outside the hospital became. Through it all, King lay unconscious, his fate uncertain. Doctors whispered about the severity of his injuries, warning that even if he survived, he might never be the same. Whispers of possible brain damage, speech loss, or paralysis shook the family to its core. Tiny collapsed into the arms of her daughter when she heard, sobbing uncontrollably, while Ty stormed down the hallway, his face red with rage, shouting that no one had the right to decide when his son's story ended. Then came the moment that tore through the internet like wildfire. Unconfirmed reports spread that King had briefly flatlined before being pulled back by a desperate team of doctors. Outside the hospital, fans screamed when they heard, some collapsing into each other's arms. Inside, Tiny's cries echoed through the halls, raw and piercing. Ty dropped to his knees in front of the ICU doors, his voice breaking as he cried out, "Lord, take everything I own. Just don't take my boy." Someone captured it on video, and within minutes it was everywhere. A moment of vulnerability that no one could ignore. The story wasn't just a tragedy anymore. It was turning into a spectacle. A global heartbreak that blurred the lines between private pain and public obsession. Celebrities started weighing in, posting messages of support. But some stirred the pot with cryptic comments. One producer tweeted, "When you play with fire, sometimes the flames reach your family." The line sent fans digging through Ty's history, trying to connect dots between old grudges and the current nightmare. Suddenly, every past feud, every enemy, every misstep was back under the spotlight, as if the entire industry was complicit in the chaos surrounding King's fight for life. The night stretched on with no answers, only more questions. Each update from the hospital felt heavier than the last. Fans outside grew restless, their prayers turning into chants for justice, their grief spilling into rage. Atlanta was on fire with emotion, and the Harris family was caught in the middle of a storm that showed no sign of stopping. The morning sun crept over Atlanta, but it brought no warmth to the Harris family. The hospital remained locked in tension, every hallway echoing with the soft hum of machines and the muffled sobs of loved ones. Fans outside had stayed all night, refusing to leave until they heard something. Anything that proved King was still fighting. News crews swarmed the scene, their cameras pointed toward the hospital entrance, desperate to catch a glimpse of Ty or Tiny. Every flicker of movement became a headline. Every whispered rumor turned into breaking news. Inside, T sat in a chair by the IQ doors, his head buried in his hands. He looked nothing like the confident mogul the world was used to seeing. His voice, usually sharp and commanding, was now soft and hoarse, each word barely audible as he whispered prayers under his breath. Tiny sat nearby, clutching a rosary with trembling fingers, her tears never seeming to stop. Family members tried to comfort her, but nothing could fill the hollow ache of watching her child lie unconscious on a hospital bed. A nurse emerged briefly, updating the family in hushed tones. "He's stable for now, but the next 24 hours are critical," she said, her eyes filled with sympathy. Those words carried like a wave through the waiting room. Stable for now. It was hope, but fragile hope, the kind that could shatter with the next heartbeat. As the hours dragged on, more stories began circulating about what had happened inside that prison. An alleged inmate recording surfaced online, the voice shaky but clear. They told us to make it look like a fight, but the target was King. They wanted him gone no matter what. Authenticity couldn't be proven, but that didn't matter. The internet had already decided it was real. Fans flooded timelines with outrage, demanding justice, while conspiracy theories grew darker by the minute. Outside the hospital, the crowd swelled into hundreds. They held up posters with King's face, candles in their hands, chanting his name in unison. Someone began a live stream, capturing the raw emotion of fans crying, hugging strangers, and shouting for answers. "Justice for King!" they screamed. "Protect our kids!" The city was no longer just grieving. It was boiling over into protest. Monitors was the only proof that King was still fighting. His chest rose and fell faintly, the weight of machines doing the work his body couldn't. Tiny clung to his hand, whispering through tears, "Mommy's here, baby. Don't you dare leave me." Her words cracked with pain, and though there was no response, she kept talking as if her voice alone could pull him back. Ty stayed by the bed too, silent for hours, his eyes fixed on his son. At one point he leaned close, his voice trembling as he whispered, "You're stronger than this. You hear me? You're my blood. Fight, son. Fight." Someone snapped a blurry photo of him bent over King's bed, gripping his son's hand, and that single image leaked online. Within minutes, fans were calling it the most heartbreaking picture in hip-hop history. But grief wasn't the only thing spreading. Theories and accusations spiraled out of control. A cryptic Instagram account posted, "The sins of the father fall on the son. This wasn't about King, it was about Ty." The account disappeared quickly, but not before screenshots flooded every timeline. Fans dissected every word, convinced it was either a confession or a warning. Back at the hospital, tension among the family turned volatile. Tiny sobs filled the corridor as relatives clashed over what the attack meant. One uncle slammed his fist against the wall, yelling, "They did this to get to T.I." Another relative snapped back, "No, it's prison corruption, don't twist it." Emotions ran high. Voices cracked, and even as they argued, the sound of machines from the IQ never stopped reminding them of what was really at stake. Meanwhile, protests outside grew more aggressive. Fans demanded that prison officials be held accountable, accusing guards of negligence or worse. One viral clip showed a furious woman screaming at officers, "Y'all shut off cameras! Y'all let it happen! Don't lie to us!" The crowd roared behind her, their anger louder than sirens. Doctors gave another grim update. King had suffered serious head trauma, and even if he survived, his future was uncertain. Paralysis, memory loss, permanent damage. Those were the words whispered in the waiting room. Tiny collapsed again, her cries echoing through the hallway, while Ty's face hardened into stone. He muttered through clenched teeth, "If he doesn't wake up, the world's gonna burn." Another leak surfaced. A supposed inmate voice recording saying, "We were told to make it look like a fight, but the target was King." Though unverified, it exploded online. Fans treated it as proof of a conspiracy, claiming rival gangs, industry enemies, or even corrupt officials wanted him silenced. Hashtags soared higher, anger mixing with heartbreak until the entire internet felt like it was holding its breath. Inside, the family's agony deepened. Ty lashed out at doctors after hearing whispers of removing King from life support if there was no improvement. "You don't get to decide when my son's story ends," he shouted, his voice cracking, his body shaking with rage. Nurses tried to calm him, but the pain in his words was undeniable. Tiny fainted in the corridor at the thought, her body too broken to handle the weight of the news. The night turned into a vigil outside. Candles glowed brighter, fans knelt on sidewalks, and the chants grew softer, shifting into prayers. Yet even in the silence of prayer, anger lingered. People wanted answers. They wanted justice. And they wanted someone to blame. Inside that IQ, Ty leaned over again, whispering to his son with a desperation that cut through the noise of the machines. "I'm not leaving until you open your eyes. Daddy's right here." And as cameras outside flashed and social media burned with speculation, the world waited in agony. unsure if the next headline would bring relief or devastation. The third day broke with an eerie stillness. The city of Atlanta felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for a single piece of news that could either heal or shatter millions of hearts. Outside the hospital, the crowd had grown into something like a movement. Vigils turned into rallies, chants into demands, and grief into fury. Posters of King's face lined the barricades. Candles dripped wax onto the pavement, and fans held hands in circles, praying aloud for a miracle. Every camera, every microphone pointed toward the hospital doors. But inside, the silence of uncertainty was deafening. Ty refused to leave his son's side. 3 days without rest had carved exhaustion into his face. His eyes bloodshot, his body hunched. But he stayed. Every so often he would lean close, whispering words only his son could hear. "Come back to me, son. You don't know how many people are out there waiting on you. The whole world is waiting." Tiny, meanwhile, barely ate, barely spoke, her body drained of strength. She clutched rosaries, her nails digging into her palms, whispering prayers through trembling lips. The whispers of conspiracy grew louder with every passing hour. Fans demanded answers about why cameras went dark in the prison. Activists shouted that if footage didn't exist, it was because someone didn't want the truth seen. "They shut the cameras off," one protester yelled into a news mic. That wasn't a glitch. That was a cover-up. The clip went viral, drawing millions of views within hours, spreading anger far beyond Atlanta. Then, just as the family clung to fragile hope, another devastating rumor spread. Unconfirmed reports claimed King had flatlined again, only to be pulled back by frantic doctors. Social media erupted. Timelines flooded with posts saying, "Pray harder," and "He's fighting." A shaky video leaked of Tiny collapsing in the hallway, crying, "They want to destroy us, they want to kill my baby." That video alone broke millions of hearts and turned grief into a firestorm. Inside the hospital, chaos spilled into the waiting room. Family members clashed over what to do. One cousin shouted, "They're after the Harris name, not just King." Another relative slammed back, "Stop spreading fear. We need to focus on keeping him alive." Voices rose, tears fell, and in the middle of it, Ty snapped. His voice cracked as he roared, "I don't care about politics, I don't care about enemies. I just want my boy breathing." His raw cry silenced the room for a moment, but only deepened the sorrow pressing down on everyone present. Rumors of revenge swirled online. Some fans said this was payback for Ty's old feuds. Others whispered about industry enemies sending a message. A producer tweeted, "When blood is spilled, debts get paid." A cryptic message that fans tore apart for hidden meaning. Old beefs were dragged back into the spotlight, every grudge dissected, every rivalry reignited. Suddenly, this wasn't just about one boy in a hospital bed. It was about the dark history of an industry that thrived on grudges and vendettas. Theories weren't just limited to hip-hop politics. Whispers of corruption inside the prison grew darker. Insiders claimed guards had been ordered to look away, that the attack wasn't just allowed but orchestrated. One leaked message allegedly from a staff member read, "We were told to stay out of it. Orders came from higher up." Though unverified, the screenshot burned across timelines, adding fuel to a fire already out of control. Tiny broke again when doctors quietly warned her that even if King survived, permanent damage was likely. Paralysis, memory loss, speech problems. The words shattered her like glass. She screamed, clutching her daughter. "They wanted to break us. And they've done it!" Ty, hearing those words, stormed down the hallway shouting at doctors. "You don't get to decide when my son's life is over. I won't let you." His anger, captured on shaky phone video, spread instantly, sparking debates online. Some saw a father desperate to save his son. Others saw a man on the verge of losing control. Outside, Atlanta erupted into a citywide cry for justice. Chants grew louder, candles burned brighter, and protest signs demanded answers from officials who stayed silent. "The system failed King," one banner read. "Protect our kids!" screamed another. Helicopters circled overhead, the noise mixing with the chants of thousands demanding truth. Inside the IQ, Ty leaned over once more, whispering fiercely into his son's ear. "You are not leaving me. Not like this. Daddy's right here, and I'm not moving until you open your eyes. Cameras caught his silhouette through the hospital glass, the image of a broken father refusing to let go. The photo went viral instantly, called by fans the most heartbreaking image in hip-hop history. As the third night fell, the hospital corridors echoed with whispers of despair. The city roared with fury, and the world watched, suspended in fear. King Harris's fate still hung by a thread, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown. No one could stop. The fourth night bled into morning with no relief in sight. The beeping of machines inside the ICU seemed louder, sharper, almost mocking the silence that had swallowed the hospital corridors. Atlanta had transformed into a city of prayers and protests, where strangers who had never met King Harris lit candles in his name, while fans live-streamed every chant, every tear, every glimpse of the family moving through those cold hospital halls. The atmosphere wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. Inside, the Harris family teetered between hope and despair. Tiny sat slumped in a chair, her face pale from exhaustion, whispering the same prayer over and over, clutching her rosary like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. Her daughter tried to comfort her, but Tiny's eyes were locked on the IQ doors, waiting for them to open, dreading the news that might come through. Ty, however, was restless. He paced the floor like a caged lion, fists clenched, his body vibrating with rage and grief. A doctor finally stepped out, delivering words that cut like knives. "He's fighting," the doctor said carefully. "But the damage is severe. Even if he pulls through, he may never be the same." The room erupted. Tiny collapsed into sobs, clutching her daughter. Ty's voice thundered through the hallway. "Don't you say that to me. Don't you dare tell me my son's story is already written." His anger, raw and unfiltered, was caught on a bystander's phone, and within minutes, it was everywhere. The internet erupted once again. Hashtags like Pray Forking and Justice Forking hit global trends, but darker ones followed. System failed King, setup, betrayal. Fans were convinced now more than ever that this wasn't a tragedy. It was an assassination attempt dressed as prison violence. Protesters outside the hospital turned the streets into a sea of voices. Some screamed at prison officials, accusing them of being complicit. Others wept openly, holding posters of King's face. A viral clip showed a fan shouting through tears, "Y'all protect criminals better than you protect a child." The rage in her voice spread across social feeds like wildfire, echoing the collective anger of thousands. Inside, the family fractured further under the weight of grief. Arguments broke out in whispers and shouts. One relative muttered, "This is T's enemies coming back to haunt us." Another snapped back, "Don't blame him, blame the system." Tiny sobbed louder, begging them to stop, crying, "My baby is in there fighting for his life, and y'all fighting each other." The family's heartbreak spilled out into the hallway, captured in clips that made their private nightmare a public spectacle. Then came the cruelest moment of all. Rumors spread that doctors had quietly told the family they might have to consider removing King from life support if there was no improvement soon. The thought shattered Tiny, who screamed, "No, never! I won't let you take him from me," her cries echoing down the corridor. Ty exploded in fury, slamming his hand against the wall, shouting at the doctors, "You don't decide when my son leaves this earth. I'll burn this whole system down before that happens." His rage, his desperation, and his grief became the headline, replayed endlessly across networks and feeds. That night, another image leaked, to bent over King's hospital bed, his forehead pressed to his son's hand, whispering, "Daddy's right here. I'm not leaving." The photo struck like lightning. Fans printed it on posters. News outlets broadcasted it on repeat. And people around the world called it the most heartbreaking image in hip-hop history. But with the heartbreak came more darkness. Cryptic posts from anonymous accounts hinted at revenge, whispered about debts owed, and suggested the attack was years in the making. One message read, "This was never about King. It was about breaking Ty." It vanished minutes later, but screenshots kept the conspiracy alive. Atlanta was on fire with emotion. Vigils turned to protests. Prayers turned to chants, and the anger grew louder with every passing hour. Helicopters roared overhead, Reporters shouted questions at police and fans demanded accountability. And still, inside the IQ, the world of one family hung by a thread. Ty whispered fiercely into his son's ear. "You are not leaving me. Not like this. You hear me? You fight." Tiny clutched her son's feet, tears streaming, her voice shaking as she begged, "Please, baby, come back to us." And with every beep of the monitors, every silent second of waiting, the fate of King Harris remained suspended between life and loss. While the world watched, prayed, and demanded to know who really wanted him gone, the sun rose again over Atlanta. But for the Harris family, it brought no peace, only another day of uncertainty. The hospital was surrounded now like a fortress. Barricades lined with candles, posters, and fans who had turned their grief into a non-stop vigil. Chants of "Justice for King" echoed against the concrete, blending with the hum of helicopters and the clicking of reporters' cameras. To outsiders, it looked like a movement, but for those inside, it was simply a family fighting for the life of their son. Inside the IQ, the air was heavy, thick with the constant hiss of machines and the faint smell of antiseptic. King lay still, his body frail under the wires and tubes. Tiny hadn't left his side, her voice hoarse from nights of whispering prayers. She held his hand, stroking it softly, her eyes swollen from endless tears. "Mommy's here," she murmured again and again, as if her words alone could anchor him to life. Ty stood at the foot of the bed, silent, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Doctors entered with grave faces, their whispers carrying more weight than any headline. They warned that King's condition remained critical, that his brain activity showed troubling signs. Even if he survived, they cautioned, he might never walk, talk, or live the same way again. Tiny broke down at those words, crying out, "They wanted to take him from me, and now they want to take his future." Ty slammed his hand against the wall, his voice cracking. "My son's story ain't over. I won't let it be." Outside, the protests reached a fever pitch. Fans demanded accountability, shouting at officials, accusing guards of standing by during the attack. Viral clips showed crowds yelling, "You failed him. You failed us," as officers tried to push through the chaos. Some fans collapsed in tears. Others raised their fists, and together their voices grew so loud it shook the streets of Atlanta. Social media turned darker with every hour. Rumors of enemies from Ty's past resurfaced, with fans convinced this was revenge meant to break him. Others whispered about prison corruption, insisting the attack was orchestrated at the highest level. Cryptic posts from anonymous accounts appeared. One reading, "This was planned years ago. The sins of the father." The post vanished within minutes, but the screenshots lived on, igniting endless debates about whether King was just caught in a trap meant for Ty. Tiny's strength crumbled when nurses hinted that King had briefly flatlined again during the night. She collapsed to the floor, screaming, "Don't take my baby! Don't take him!" Ty rushed to her side, his face streaked with tears, holding her close, whispering, "He's still here. He's still fighting." The moment, captured by someone in the corridor, spread online, breaking hearts across the globe. Celebrities added fuel to the storm. Rappers, producers, and industry voices filled timelines with cryptic comments. Some offered prayers, others stirred the pot. One producer tweeted, "When old debts come due, blood is the price." Fans dissected every word, convinced it was proof of a larger plot. Suddenly, this wasn't just a family tragedy. It was tied to decades of grudges, betrayals, and feuds that hip-hop had never left behind. Meanwhile, the family's unity fractured under pressure. Arguments erupted behind closed doors. Some relatives accused Ty of dragging his son into a life of enemies. Others insisted the system was to blame, that no one could have predicted this. Tiny's cries cut through their fighting, begging them to stop. "Our boy is in there fighting for his life, and y'all are tearing each other apart." Her voice silenced the room, but the cracks were clear. Through it all, T.I. stayed by his son's bed. His eyes never left King's face. Leaning close, his voice raw, he whispered, "You're my legacy, you hear me? You're not leaving me like this." Tiny joined him, holding King's feet, her tears dripping onto the sheets. They clung to him like anchors, praying their love was enough to pull him back. Outside, Atlanta burned with anger and grief. The streets glowed with candlelight. Fans shouted his name into the night sky, and the whole world seemed to be waiting for one headline. The headline that would decide if King Harris would rise from the edge, or if hip-hop was about to lose a prince forever. As dawn crept over the city, the hospital stood like a silent witness to the storm that had consumed Atlanta. The crowd outside had only grown, their chants quieter now, more like prayers whispered into the morning air. Justice for King, protect our kids, and pray for King were scrawled across signs, glowing in candlelight that hadn't gone out all night. The world had been glued to this story, every update hitting timelines like a thunderclap, every rumor pulling fans deeper into heartbreak. Inside, the Harris family clung to the smallest signs of hope. Tiny, drained but unrelenting, sat at her son's side, whispering into his ear, "Mama's right here, baby. You're not leaving me." Ty stayed near the bed, gripping King's hand like it was the only thing holding his own soul together. For days he hadn't left, his body trembling with exhaustion, his voice raw from whispered pleas. Doctors still gave no certainty. They said the next hours would decide everything, that King's fate hung by the thinnest thread. The family's pain was unimaginable. Their private nightmare turned into the most public heartbreak hip-hop had ever seen. Fans flooded the hospital steps crying, praying, demanding justice. News crews captured the scene, and in every corner of the internet, one question lingered. Who wanted King gone, and why? Celebrities added their voices, some offering love and prayers, others fueling speculation with cryptic comments. Conspiracy theories only grew darker, tying the tragedy to old feuds, prison corruption, and industry vendettas. But through all the noise, one truth cut through. A young man's life hung in the balance, and a family was shattered. And now, the world waits. Atlanta waits. Ty, Tiny, their children, and millions of fans wait. Will King open his eyes, proving stronger than the forces that tried to silence him? Or will this tragedy mark the moment hip-hop lost a prince forever? We want to hear from you. What do you think really happened? Was this just another case of prison violence spiraling out of control, or something much bigger? A setup meant to break a family, a warning shot meant to send fear across the industry. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you're praying for King Harris and standing with the Harris family, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video so the world knows this story isn't over. Because no matter how this ends, one fact is clear: this isn't just a headline. This is a cultural earthquake, a family's deepest pain, and a moment that has shaken millions to their core. The future hangs by a thread, and the next chapter is one we'll all be watching together.